Hello everyone, as I'm sure all of you know, Zhongli is returning for another rerun, and though I must say his banner is terrible, he is by no means terrible, but actually really good, and is in fact one of the best units in the game. He's an old character that has stood the test of time, and is constantly being praised in the community. But an important question is whether he's still worth it. With more shield characters and Fontaine's arrival, bringing new characters and mechanics, there are many things to consider if you're wishing for Zhongli, all of which I'll cover in this video. I'll go over Zhongli's place in the meta, how he stands in Fontaine, how free-to-play friendly he is, and other important things to consider when it comes to him. With that, let's get right into the video, and first talk about what Zhongli can actually do. Zhongli's kit revolves around his skill and his burst. His skill is the bread and butter of his kit. When held, Zhongli will summon a pillar and apply his shield. The pillar deals low damage, so it's unimportant, but what is important is Zhongli's shield. His shield is famous for the simple fact that it's very strong. It's the strongest shield in the game. When you build him with HP as well as level his shield, Zhongli's shield can withstand all kinds of attacks. His shield is essentially unbreakable, which makes him incredibly useful since all teams need some sort of protection from attacks, which Zhongli does very well. And honestly, a little too well. Zhongli can make the game too easy since you never have to dodge, nor do you ever take damage. So Zhongli was so overpowered that Hoyoverse literally had to design a new enemy to counter him. These dogs inflict corrosion, which deals damage even if you have a shield, rendering him useless against these enemies, but for the other 99% of enemies in the game, he's amazing and will serve you very well. Some of you may be thinking that Zhongli's shield is too strong, and you're right, but the madness doesn't stop there. For some reason, Hoyoverse didn't see a stupidly strong shield as balanced enough, so they made his shield a free noblesse oblige. What I mean by this is that when you activate his shield, the shield will actually reduce the resistances enemies have to all elements. This increases your damage quite a bit, and actually more than the noblesse buff does. So with his shield, you're not just getting a nearly unbreakable shield, you're also getting a great buff that's virtually permanent since his shield will always be active. Now for his burst, it's a low energy burst that when damages enemies, causes them to be frozen for a few seconds. This is what's called petrification, and the amount of time enemies are petrified increases with how many times you level his burst. At level 10, enemies are petrified for 4 seconds, which isn't a whole lot, but can be useful when trying to have some peace in a fight and land some unblockable hits. However, most of the times players will ignore his burst since its animation is long and they just use Zhongli for his shield, which of course makes sense, but his burst can be a useful talent for dealing damage to enemies. Its scaling is very high, and so long as you invest in it, leveling the talent and giving Zhongli attack and crit, it can be a nice burst to maintain your DPS when waiting on cooldowns or to take a good chunk out of enemies' health. So all in all, Zhongli's kit is very good and it's actually overpowered. This is primarily because of his shield since it's virtually unbreakable and increases the damage of your entire team. This alone makes him one of the most useful characters in the game and essentially a must pull, but if you also focus on his burst, he can be a strong DPS that helps out with the team's damage. So with these two aspects of his kit, Zhongli is a very strong character. He has essentially no weakness, at least I can't think of none, and can aid your team in many useful ways. But with such a good kit, how does Zhongli stand in Fontaine? Does he drown, as do many characters with the new meta, or does he rise above the waters of Fontaine? So far, it's not entirely clear on what Fontaine's new meta will be. There has only been 2 and soon 3 Fontaine characters released, and even with them and new enemies, there doesn't seem to be a shift from the way things currently are. There is, however, a unique mechanic Fontaine characters have. It is an HP sacrifice mechanic. As the name implies, with certain abilities, Fontaine characters will sacrifice a portion of their HP. For example, Linny, when you charge attack with him, he will lose some of his HP. It's safe to say this is what all Fontaine characters will have, since characters of new nations always have new gimmicks to play around with, and it seems as though this is Fontaine's. As for how Zhongli synergizes with this mechanic, he actually synergizes well, as good as he does with other characters. The reason being is that at a certain point, Linny and Lynette will stop losing HP when using their abilities, and they actually heal themselves. Had they continued to lose HP and not be able to heal, then Zhongli wouldn't be a good fit for them since a healer would be better. But since this isn't the case, his usefulness extends to these characters and he's still just as strong as he was in other nations. Granted, with the playstyles of Linny and Lynette, he's probably not the best option for them, but he's by no means unplayable with them. Because of this, in my eyes, it's safe to say that Zhongli will still be a very useful character in Fontaine. It's possible, and honestly to be expected, that with certain kits, characters will have more gimmicks or mechanics that will make Zhongli a bad teammate for them. But for all the other Fontaine characters, which likely is most of the Fontaine roster, it seems as though there will be no problems pairing them with Zhongli, and that he will be a good support for them. With Zhongli's place in Fontaine covered, let's get into how does he stand in today's Genshin. You've heard me give him praises, but with how common shield characters are, is he still worth pulling? The answer is yes, but with a catch. See, though I call Zhongli a must pull and I stand behind this, the fact of the matter is that with how common shield characters are, his pull value has decreased. Since if you need a shield character in your team, you have many options to choose from, and you probably already have a few shield units. As such, if you want the effect of a shielder in your team, if you want the protection a shielder brings, you can just use the many other shielders in the game. You can protect your team by this means and don't have to go out of your way and wish for a new 5-star, as was the case in the past. But the thing about all these other shielders is that they're all Walmart versions of Zhongli. Zhongli as a shielder is so good that he's still the best shielder in the game and is almost always the best character to run when a shield is needed. His shield is much stronger than theirs and again buffs your team's damage on its own regardless of what set Zhongli is using. He's so good in this role that despite his competition growing, he's still king. He has yet to be dethroned and probably won't ever be. Though you could use another unit as a shielder in your team and gain the benefits of a shield, there's no denying that Zhongli is still the best of all shielders and that he would be a much better character to use as a shielder instead of the 4-star you're using. So despite there being more shielders, Zhongli's pull value is still high. It perhaps has gone down a bit over the addition of other shielders, but it's still very high since he's still very good. Now let's get into Zhongli's builds, specifically how free-to-play friendly they are and how they're achieved. This is important since of course he must be built, and it can be a big pain when a character requires expensive or hard to attain things. But thankfully Zhongli is incredibly free-to-play friendly and very easy to build. For his shield build, he's very cheap to build. You can use a wide variety of artifact sets, the best being for tenacity. This set will increase his shield strength, which is already really strong, though a welcome buff nonetheless. But most importantly, it will increase the attack of your team, just as Noblesse does. However, the buff triggers when his skill attacks an opponent, which is easy to do with his pillar. This, accompanied by his resistance shred, will allow your team to deal much more damage than before. With this, you could say Zhongli turns into a sort of shield Bennett. This is of course a very good thing, so I highly recommend this set should you opt for his shield build. Next to the set is any 2 sets of HP percent, or you could give him other support sets that will help your team, such as 4 Exile or 4 Deepwood if he's in a Dendro team. With these sets, all you need is triple HP, and even then you could go for double HP and anything else to save resources, since his shield is already so strong. In addition to this, because he's a support, his crit stats don't matter, so you just need any HP artifact and you're good. For his weapons, again, they're very free to play friendly and easy to attain. His best shield weapon is an HP percent staff, such as the Black Tassel. This will increase his HP by a ton, while having the benefit of being very easy to acquire since it is a 3-star. Though I'd recommend not to use this weapon if you are going triple HP, since it will be overkill. It'll be too much HP for Zhongli. His shield will already be so strong that it's not worth it to continue to increase his shield. It'd be better instead to give him the Favonius Lance so he can battery his team, which is really useful. The next build of Zhongli is a hybrid build. This is the build I personally use and recommend. That's not to say I don't recommend the shield build, it is indeed really good, but the nice thing about this build is that with it, you get a strong shield and a strong damaging burst. Zhongli's shield in this build is definitely not as strong as it would be in the pure shield build, but in this build, you get the bonus of Zhongli being a sub DPS. His burst can hit for around 80k and with enough investment, 100k or more, depending on the team he's in. But that's the only negative thing about this build, that it requires much more investment than the pure shield build because Zhongli's crit is now more important and you have to juggle the balancing of Zhongli having enough attack, HP, and ER. Though this will take a fair bit of investment, it's not a crazy amount since you have many great options of artifacts and weapons to utilize. For example, when it comes to artifacts, there's 4 Emblem, giving Zhongli all the ER he needs as well as a lot of damage to his burst, and then the mixing of any 2 sets that will increase his attack, HP, or burst damage. In regard to his weapons, right off the bat you have the amazing free-to-play option of the catch. This will increase Zhongli's burst crit a very nice amount while giving ER, so it's an incredible free-to-play option. Outside of this and say the Blackcliff, because we're looking to increase damage, the other good polearms to use are more premium options, such as 4-star gacha weapons and any 5-star staffs. Now for Zhongli Teams, it's a simple thing to go over since there are many teams he can be played in. Of course, I'm not going to mention every team he's applicable in, but note that he's applicable in all kinds of teams. If a team needs protection, he's your guy, or if you want a good increase in damage but can't use Bennett, he's a great unit to use. You can place him in really any teams, and 9 times out of 10 he'll perform wonderfully. To conclude this video, should you wish for Zhongli? First, if you like him or his kit, absolutely. But for a more objective answer, my overarching answer is yes. There's just too many good things that he brings to where there's little to no reason not to pull him. Outside of you not liking him or his kit, or if you're saving for another character you like more, I think you should pull him. Aside from these reasons, I can't think of any other reasons not to pull him because he's so good and so useful. Yes, you can find success without him, and I do want to stress that it's not as though you need to pull him or else you won't succeed in the game, but he makes succeeding in the game much easier and caters to a wide variety of situations and players. If you care for the meta, he's the unit for you since he's very strong and has stayed relevant in the meta for a very long time. If you want a versatile unit that can improve many teams, then again he's the unit for you since his abilities are useful in many teams. If you want to strengthen your account and improve your abyss clears or get closer to clearing all 36 stars, then once more he's a great unit to pull since he'll help you do that with his strong abilities and serve you really well. Well everyone, that is my review of Zhongli. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps you in deciding if you're going to be pulling for him. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of my review, as well as whether you're going to be wishing for Zhongli or saving for another rerun, or just waiting for a new Fontaine character. I'm curious to your guys' answers, so please let me know. For those that do decide to wish for him, I wish you the best of luck and hope you enjoy playing with him. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And with that, I'm gonna end the video. Thank you all for watching, take care, and thank you once again.